Just start whenever you're ready, bro. Jump right in.
Yeah, go ahead with the signals.
Once he turns around.
He's got to get the stream set up.
Good afternoon. I'm Brian Hlusk. I'm the Central Region Vice President for NYSCOPBA. In a moment, you'll hear from NYSCOPBA President Michael Powers. Also joining us today is Executive Vice President Kevin Donnelly, Recording Secretary Chris Summers, Western Region Vice President Mark the Burgermaster, and Northern Region Vice President John Roberts. We're here today standing outside what used to be known as Oneida Correctional Facility. Nearly 10 years ago, Governor Cuomo started a disturbing trend and announced that the closure of this facility upending lives of over 600 employees and their families and relocating nearly 1,000 inmates. Some of these buildings on these grounds date back to 1880s, filled with lifetimes of history. Today, at this facility, it is crumbling before our eyes. It's an eyesore for this community. I'm sure if you poll the local businesses and residents in this area, they certainly aren't benefiting from this decision today. The state has tried to sell it. No buyer has stepped forward. The neighborhood has deteriorated. Homes' values have plummeted. The city's population hasn't been this low since 1930s. I ask you, is it worth it? We've warned the state for years that closing these facilities would have an adverse impact on the surrounding communities. And with more prison closures in the immediate horizon, NYSCOPBA is once again sounding the alarm on these poorly thought out policies. I would now like to bring up Mark the Burgermaster, Western Region Vice President, to the podium to say a few words. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark the Burgermaster. I'm the Western Region Vice President for NYSCOPBA. I'd like to take a moment to discuss the COVID-19 pandemic and how it has affected our organization and our members. While the majority of state workers got to safely work from the comfort of their own couches, our members did not have that luxury. Since day one of the pandemic, the brave men and women of NYSCOPBA continue to show up for work in person, day in, day out, in confined spaces with dangerous individuals who have a history of showing little to no regard for the well-being of others. The pandemic was not kind to our members. Hundreds of members contracted the disease, and thousands more were quarantined, from exposures to individuals who were positive in our prison system. And yes, we have lost some of our brothers and sisters to this pandemic. Every day, I represent the members who have been impacted by the pandemic. Members who had to go without pay for their families, who the state refused to cover after a positive test, who the state refused to cover after being ordered to quarantine by the department, who's forced to work in conditions that even PESH and OSHA refused to perform inspections due to non-existing policies or standards to follow. Who also, when convenient for the department, had their essential status removed or diminished, who worked in facilities with over 200 plus members in the facility were actually out on quarantine. Wendy at one point had 185 members on quarantine. The facility still functioned and ran. Auburn, 225 members out on quarantine. The facility still functioned and ran. That's not to mention all across the other facilities across the state, Coxsackie, Sing Sing, all the way up to Clinton. This affected us statewide. And who worked through the closure of 3 facilities, uprooting members and spreading them across the state, and at times transferring inmates that were positive from facility to facility. Doesn't sound like a safe or smart approach that we've been told to adopt. It kills me the lack of support and respect for our members, men and women of NYSCOPBA, who faced all this and more. Only through their dedication, their sacrifice, was every facility able to continue operating. But once again, the state is looking to close more prisons. Today, New York State is celebrating its reopening with most restrictions lifted across the state. Also today, New York is adopting the new CDC guidance, which states if you are fully vaccinated, you can ditch the mask. and remove social distancing with some exceptions. One of those exceptions is if you are in a prison facility. Even if you are fully vaccinated, the science dictates that it's not safe enough for you to take off your mask inside the walls of our facilities. The rapid spread of COVID through the inmates and officers within our prison facilities demonstrates firsthand that they are overcrowded. Elmira Correctional Facility went from 35 inmates to over 500 positive inmates in the short span of 2 weeks. Closing more facilities will only lead to less available space to house incarcerated individuals, thus compounding the issue. Staff will be pushed tighter together. Our members will once again be put in harm's way of the virus and increased violence that we face daily. COVID is still real. People are still contracting the virus. People are still dying from it. Until the pandemic is declared over, we think closing more facilities, eliminating more available space is misguided and dangerous. With more on that, I would like to invite NYSCOPBA President Mike Powers to the podium.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for being here today. As Brian mentioned, the governor made it an annual tradition to close our facilities throughout the state of New York, and he highly touts that he's proud of that fact, knowing that his father is the one that opened up these facilities. His administration has closed more prison facilities than any governor in New York State history. The list is long. Over the past decade, he has closed 17 facilities. Butler Correctional Facility, Buffalo, Oneida, which stands behind us today, Mid-Orange Correctional Facility, Fulton, Arthur Kill, Bayview, Beacon, Chateaugay, Monterey, Butler, Lincoln, Livingston, Gowanda Correctional Facility, Watertown Correctional Facility, Summit Shock, and Mount McGregor, soon to be adding to that list. By closing these facilities, the governor and docs tout the financial savings that the state benefits from. But at what cost? We believe that it's at the cost of human safety, and more specifically, the safety of the men and women of NYSCOPBA. Here's the proof. During the Cuomo administration, the violence in our prison system has spiked significantly. Since 2012, violent incidents inside the prisons, walls and fences of these facilities have risen 100%. We've gone from just over 500 violent incidents on staff in 2012 to over 1,000 in 2020. This while the prison population has decreased by 20,000 inmates in the same time span. Think about it, over 1,000 attacks on our members every year. That means today at least 3 of our members will be injured while just trying to do their job. 3 more tomorrow, 3 more the day after that. The facts speak for themselves. These are not our numbers, these are the state's numbers. These are factual numbers and they don't lie. What kind of administration allows its employees to be injured on the job and turn a blind eye to it? Why does the state of New York allow such a dangerous work environment? We have a bill pending in the state legislature. We've been calling on it for some time now, which establishes a temporary state commission to study and make recommendations on the rise of violence in our correctional facilities within the last 10 years. Closing prisons brings these dangerous individuals into tighter, more confined spaces and will bring more danger and violence to our daily lives. With that, we are calling on Governor Cuomo and docs to hold off on closing any more prisons till our legislation is passed and the study is complete. Not only that, the global pandemic is still ongoing and reducing available space at a time when this virus is still ever present and does not feel like the right move at this time. Closing prisons is just another failure of this state. The countless number of pro-inmate policies enacted by this administration, combined with closing facilities to save money, has put our members in direct harm. There's no denying this. The numbers are our proof. We have the truth on our side. Last week, we filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against the state to stop the implementation of HALT. HALT is legislation that was crafted in a fantasy world. Legislation that was formed because it supports the supporters deliberately misled the public. Solitary confinement does not exist in this state or anywhere in this country. I know the advocate community would like you to believe it does, but it doesn't. Their push for this legislation will lead to more people being hurt because forgiving violence only causes more violence. And the cost to implement HALT are astronomical. There's a price tag at $45 million to bring this in, and that won't scratch the surface to bring this about. Where's the state getting this money? Closing prisons under the guise of saving taxpayers' money while enacting an expensive policy like HALT doesn't pass the smell test. New York State needs to rethink their approach to closing our facilities, and they need to do it now before another one of our members gets hurt simply for trying to do their job.
The state continues to put our members in grave danger. The numbers speak for themselves. Our bill that is pending in the state legislature will look to find out why the numbers are so bad and look for solutions to improve conditions for everyone in the prison system. Closing these correctional facilities negatively impacts the surrounding communities. COVID ravaged through our correctional facilities. Decrease in physical space at a time where social distancing is required, that just doesn't add up. Closing facilities to potentially help pay for the implementation of a poorly thought out policy like HALT, that isn't being New York smart. Again, we demand the state to rethink its impending prison closure announcement and listen to us, the professionals, because we know what really goes on behind these walls. At this time, my colleagues and I will take any questions you may have.
Mike. 2019, when the before the SHU regulations were brought forward to the governor's office from the majority leaders of both the Senate and the Assembly. We'd like to see a more secure model, rehabilitation model. We've got 60 individuals or 50 individuals in a housing unit during a national pandemic. A better secure model would, if we had a smaller inmate population in each housing unit, would give us the better advantage to maintain security, be able to quell potential violence before it happens, and not only that, but also save the staff and the inmate population and practice the general precautions that are put forward during the COVID pandemic.
So what are the bean counters missing? What are they not seeing?
How much time have you got? Plenty. This legislation, this HALT legislation that was passed, and much of the concerns that we have going forward for a secure model in the correctional system, and I'm quick to tout the correctional officers and sergeants and throughout the state of New York is the best in the nation. But I mean, difficulty doing that in a dense populated area just makes the job even all that more difficult, especially during a national pandemic. The concerns we have going forward is there's been no contact with us, the shareholders, that ultimately go forward, and this HALT legislation is a perfect example of that.
You know who sponsored that legislation?
Which one? HALT was sponsored by Julius Salazar, and in the House of Assembly was, I can get that for you. I know it, I just can't spit it out right now. It's a constantly moving target. I mean, we were the first ones to be on the front line calling for proper PPE equipment back in February of last year, well before the pandemic really took hold in the state of New York. We were the front ones on the line asking for the masks, the gowns, the proper hand sanitizers and soap, and everything that came with the general precautions that the CDC recommended. We were the first ones on the line asking for that, and it unfortunately it took a lot of browbeating to get it. I know that it's readily available for staff and for the inmate population, and obviously, that boils down to a personal preference for anybody who wants to have, to obtain the vaccination.
You want a vaccine?
Pardon me?
Are you guys vaccinated?
I am. I can't speak for the rest of them. Most of them, some of them. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
No, I don't have those numbers. As Mark indicated, it ran through our congregated settings pretty rapidly. Elmira was an eye opener. I mean, Auburn, Wendy, Clinton, Great Meadow, some of the southern district jails. Once it grabbed hold, it took right off. Michael Powers, Michael Powers. Sure. I'm not going to attempt to.
Brian Hluska, Bryan Hluska. Central Region Vice President.
Mark the Burgomaster, MarkDeburgomaster, Western Region Vice President.
As was mentioned, we have other members as well. John Roberts, Northern Region. Chris Summers, our recording secretary. Cody Watt, local at Mohawk Correctional Facility. Kevin Donnelly, the Executive Vice President, and you met Mark. So, any other questions? Thanks again for your time. We appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, jeez, I just...
I don't know if I can take it anymore.
Brian, we're in Brian's region.
Yeah.